Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate how to conduct a binomial distribution analysis for a given scenario. We'll be using the binomial probabilities distribution table in the back of your text. And let's discuss the scenario. So in this situation, there's a Pew Research study that's been done. They're a fairly reputable research firm. And what they found was that 70% of adults were subscribed to a social networking site. Facebook would be a classic example there, Pinterest, Weibo, if you've heard of that one. And the study period was 2015. So what you've done here, what happens now is there are 5 adults who randomly attend an event, just any 5 adults. And so what is the probability that all will be social networking subscribers? Okay, so they have one of these subscriptions to a social networking site. Exactly 1 will be a social networking subscriber, exactly one and only one. And then the third question is at least 3 will be a social networking subscriber. So how do we go about conducting that analysis? So the first one, what you're saying there is what is the probability that you're going to get a value of 5, meaning all 5, when you talk to them, are going to be social networking subscribers. And we're going to evaluate this at p.7 because you had a 70% probability for the overall population that was created through this sample. So you inferred that about a population. Not that big of a deal as far as understanding how to do a binomial distribution, but just be aware that this was probably more likely a sample. So now, what is the probability that all will be social networking subscribers? This is pretty straightforward. You have your sample, okay? It's just the 5 people that showed up or that were at this random event, and you're saying, okay, what's the probability that all five were social networking subscribers? So you have 5, and then you come across here, and you're conducting this analysis at a P of 0.7, that's capital P of 0.7, and you discover, or you discern that it's 0.168. Now the table here, what it's done is taken all those formulas that we talked about in class and created that table, and those are also loaded in the computer. So now you would say that what's the probability that all 5 of those that you talked to that were randomly attended this event, okay, it is 0.168 or about 17%. So that would be the probability in that situation where the probability is 0.7 for the overall population, and at an X of 5 based on a sample of 5, you would get this 17% value, or roughly 17%. Now the second part of this is, what is the probability that exactly 1 and only 1 will be a social networking subscriber? Once again, you come over here to your table. We're still at 5. That's how many people were gathered. And you say, okay, what's probably a bit of 1? You run your finger across and down. Okay, there's 0.7 down and across. So this is about 0.028, or roughly 3% probability. So what you would say is that at a probability of 7, when X is equal to 1 and only 1 that was a subscriber to a social networking site, that probability is pretty low, about 3%. The final example, or the final part of the question, is what is the probability that at least 3 will be a social networking subscriber? So what you're really doing here is you're taking what is the probability that X is greater than or equal to 3, because it says at least. If it said, was less than 3, then it would be you'd evaluate this at 2, 1, and 0. But this is greater than 3, greater than or equal to 3. So it's a little more involved, but pretty straightforward. Is you're going to evaluate, and what you're going to do is you're going to evaluate at 3, 4, and 5 for the value of x at a p of 0.7. So you come in here, still at 5, you run at 3, still at 0.7, and you've got a 0.309. But then you have to add in 4 because 4 was a point of interest, okay, or number of interest. In this case, an x value, 0.360, and then 5 was 0.168. So all you do is add those 3 values together, and you come up with about 0.83837, or about 84%. Okay, and that's pretty much how that works out. So you would say that about, at least in situation C, about 84% of those, the probability that 3 or more of those 5 people gathered were all social networking subscribers was at the overall probability of 0.7 was actually about a 84% probability. That concludes the discussion and the example on binomial distribution.